Good morning, everyone. This is the Governor's Council hearing on the nomination of Danielle Williams to the District Court in the place she would be nominated from is Westfield District Court. So I'm going to, at this time, formally introduce the counselors who are here. Eileen Duff, Christina.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning. And I understand Counselor Dubonville is here. Counselor Kennedy joined us and may have to leave for a few minutes. Counselor Dubonville is here as well.
Thank you.
And time, the governor has nominated you to the position of the District Court Justice. And I'm going to ask if there's anyone here who is in favor of this nomination. I would note for the record that Representative Bud Williams joined today, and I believe you are here to speak in favor of this nominee. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
First of all, thank you, Governor's Council. Thank you, and to thank him for a great nomination, and to my dear Mayor Hurley, Judge Hurley, Governor's Council Hurley. I don't know what you want to be called by, Your Honor, but we'll go with all of the above. I want to thank you for your hard work on behalf of Massachusetts and the Valley in terms of getting jurists nominated to the bench. And we just want to honor you for your hard work. I know it isn't easy working with members from Eastern Massachusetts. And to this outstanding nominee that you have named, you put her name in nomination. I have had the pleasure of working with Danielle Williams when I was a probation officer, Springfield District Court, many years, and I see Carmen Peachy's on the phone. So it's like District Court home week for me. I worked 2007, and I retired shortly after that. And I'm going to tell you, she is always, first of all, her mother, who has always and used to carry her around under her arm when she was a very young lady working in the Springfield broader community. But I worked with Danielle, and I want to tell you, temperament, compassion, understanding, really strikes me with her is her humility. I've watched her. I'm the probation officer. She was the assistant district attorney in many tough cases when we worked with Judge Boyle and Judge Beatty. Many tough cases in Springfield, as you might imagine. All types of cases coming through there. And she always had the same temperament, the same humility, and the same compassion. I have never, and she might have another side to her, I have never seen this young lady act out of order in terms of a facial expression. Just something that would say that she's having a bad day. Always same temperament, same understanding. And as I said, Springfield District Court, as we know, was the busiest court in the Commonwealth. Hundreds and hundreds of cases every single day coming through that trial court. So she'd make an outstanding jurist, understands the law, has worked very well in the community, helped start a charter school here in Springfield to broaden choices for individuals within our community. So I couldn't think of a better nominee. She's going to be an outstanding jurist. She's going to make women proud, especially African-American women who now have something to look up to shoot at as a role model. And you too, Your Honor, I want to thank you for this great selection. She's going to be an asset to this criminal justice system. And I've been in that system over 30 years. I've seen a lot of judges come and I've seen them go. She's going
Thank
to be
you,
an
Bud.
outstanding jurist, career, and going to dispense justice. And Danielle, you call it like you see it, not how somebody else sees it. Good luck, my friend, your mom, good luck to her. And Judge Hurley, I want to thank you one more time, Your Honor. Outstanding, and you're working very hard in this community.
Thank you, Bud. Any questions of this witness?
I do, Judge. I do, Mary.
Yes, Bob.
I didn't get your name, sir.
Bud L. Williams.
State Representative Bud Williams,
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
former probation officer of the Springfield District Court who worked with Danielle.
Okay. And how long were you a probation officer?
Okay, what?
Hey, too long.
You said-
30-something
you said-
years.
Did you work with a fellow named Lunardini?
Oh, Lunardini, that's my Holyoke.
Yeah, that's my cousin. Hello? We lost him.
He's still there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So, John Lunardini, he's my cousin. He worked over there in probation years ago. Did you know John Lunardini? He's not hearing me.
I didn't.
All right.
We're all set on our side.
What was the
Okay.
question, Your Honor?
Did you know John Lunardini?
Great guy out of Holyoke, the great city. Works
He
very
was
well.
Governor's Council Jubenville's cousin.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they're,
I wouldn't
Jubenville
kid you
is
on that. I
Holyoke.
wouldn't kid you on that.
John was a
When did-
very
When did,
close to John. We like basketball, and he's a great basketball
Yeah.
player back in Holyoke.
yeah. When did you retire from the probation?
2008.
Well, I admire you going in a different direction after you retired and becoming a state rep. You got a great reputation out there. Thank you.
No, thank you, and thank you for your hard work that you do. John Lunardini was a great individual. Right, Peachy?
Absolutely.
Can't hear
Thank
me.
you.
Mary, just a comment, Terry Kennedy.
Yes, Counselor Kennedy.
Thank you, Councilor Hurley. A couple of things, Representative. First of all, thank you for coming before the council. A lot of times, members of the House come here and don't come back for some reason. I don't know why, but we appreciate you coming. I just want to say that I agree with everything you said about Councilor Hurley. She works very, very hard, and she's been a very strong advocate of this particular nominee. I disagree with one thing that you said, that the nominee, when she becomes a judge, is going to become a role model for women and African-American women. I think she already is one. And I think that, and I agree with you that that is very, very important. And she has a great reputation, as do you, Representative. Keep doing the good work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And you're pushing some great nominees out. You're working very hard. We love it.
Thanks,
Well, remember
Bud.
that after the budget crisis is over. Remember that at time. See you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Counselor Hurley,
Yes,
Counselor Hurley.
yes, Counselor Devaney.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask the witness just one question. What is the most outstanding adjective you could use to describe this nominee?
I think the word humility, being very humble, doesn't think too much of herself in terms of where she sits in society, and always been humble. And I think I've seen many great jurists, including Judge Hurley, on the bench, And I think that's one of the qualities that you have to have is the humility to understand individuals within life. And sometimes you get some very tough cases and people come from different in society. Some when you're in the district court, some very, very, poor individuals who have had, down on their luck. And sometimes you get on that bench and you're sitting up and you're looking down, basically, from an Eagles perspective. But I think she has the temperament to do an outstanding job. And I like that. I like the balance that she
Thank
brings.
you.
As I said in my own statement, I've worked in
Have you,
the court, and you can get bombarded, as Judge Hurley will tell you, with cases, domestic abuse, assault cases, possession. And we used to do, 100, 200 arraignments. And she sat to the left, to the right of the judge, and I'm the probation. And I've never seen her expression change in terms of if she was having a bad day, I never could detect her facial expression and her demeanor was always the same. And I really mean that. And sometimes, I can get excited and but her temperament and humility, that's what I would like.
Thank you, Bud.
thank you. Tell me, you've gone before that, in that court many times. Is that your experience?
He was a probation.
I was a probation officer.
Okay, so you're a probation officer. So if you, so have you gone to court many times before with Counselor Hurley?
Sure.
Okay, so you know each other well. Okay, thank you. That's all I want to ask.
All right, our next witness will be the Honorable Justice John Payne. Payne, not Pain. You may be seated. You may begin.
Can I begin?
You may
Thank you.
begin. And I'd
Good
like to
morning,
welcome-
everyone.
Good morning.
My name is John Payne, as Councilor Hurley just indicated. I'm the presiding justice of the Springfield District Court, and I am here to speak in favor of this nominee, Danielle Williams, who I believe is an outstanding candidate and would make an outstanding jurist in the district court. She possesses the qualities and the characteristics of a person you would want as a jurist in the court, whether it is her intelligence, her professionalism, her competence, and most importantly, her integrity. I would agree with what State Representative Williams just indicated about the fact that she is a humble person, but I would stress her integrity. I've had an opportunity to know and observe Danielle for 17 years now. I first encountered her when she was a newly minted attorney in the district attorney's office in Hampden County. And one of the things that, as a district court judge, that over the last 20 years, I've had an opportunity to do and kind of enjoy at times, is to watch new attorneys begin their careers, and to watch them as they blossom into experienced practitioners and attorneys and members of the bar. And I certainly saw that with Danielle Williams. Every time that she appeared in front of me, from whether it was an arraignment, an evidentiary hearing, a bail argument, a trial in front of a jury or a bench trial, each time she came in, you noticed the fact that she was more polished, more professional, more competent. She was always a collegial individual. She was always very prepared. And it was a pleasure to watch her develop as an attorney. Over the last 4 or 5 years, she's been an assistant clerk magistrate in our court. And as State Representative Williams just indicated, the Springfield District Court is and has been for many years the busiest district court in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it is a tough place. It's a demanding place. It's a court that requires someone who is dedicated to providing justice for the citizens of this Commonwealth. And that's what I've watched her do in carrying out and handling any courtroom she's assigned to. And she does it with, again, with compassion and with humility, but she does it with a professionalism and a control that I think is most impressive. I have never seen her lose control of a courtroom she's been in. I have never seen her have to raise her voice. Her simple presence and appearance controls that courtroom. I would just indicate also, the COVID situation has caused disarray for all of us, and certainly in the courts that has been true. But one of the things that it has done, which I hope will be an unintended positive consequence, is it has brought the court system in many ways into the 21st century. We do things now with technology that we've never done before, and I'm not sure we would have done had it not been for the circumstances we are currently in. Danielle has taken to that responsibility and has become quite competent in dealing with the issues that surround the technology use that our courts are using today to carry out justice and will use in the future when things hopefully get back to a more normal pace. Danielle Williams today, right now, if she was sworn in as a judge, could walk into any district court in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and handle whatever session she was placed in. Again, she is an outstanding candidate for a judge. She will serve the district court, the trial court, and most importantly, the citizens of the Commonwealth who come in to use our court system in a way that will be outstanding. I, for one, as I am slowly ending my career on the bench, I will miss those days when she is not a clerk in a session that I am in, but I will be a joyous person with the fact that I can call her a colleague. And I urge this body to support this nomination and make Danielle Williams the newest member of the district court. I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Council Hurley?
Not sure she can hear you.
Any questions of this witness?
I do, Council Hurley.
Counselor Jubenville.
It's good to see you, Judge. I've seen you on the bench a bunch of times when I
Nice to
go
see you,
out there.
Counselor.
How long you been sitting now?
Almost 20 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez, huh?
Judge Hurley wants it. Judge Hurley keeps, I call her Judge Hurley, but, or Mayor Hurley, but Counselor Hurley keeps asking me when I'm leaving. She has plans, I think, for that position.
She has,
I've got you
there'd be a recall?
What's that?
There'd be a recall?
No, not as a recall. She's got plans to fill the position already, so,
So, the 20 years, so you've seen a lot of changes in the Springfield court.
yes, sir.
You mentioned the new technology we're using, Zoom, I suppose you use a lot out there?
Zoom, Polycom.
Yeah.
We're using both of those. We're doing much more on email with respect to documents and materials.
Right.
Oftentimes, the lawyers are not coming into the courtroom
Right.
for the most part.
Right.
So all of these are major changes that are taking place.
Yeah, and in talking to the chief and other chiefs, a lot of those things, I think you're right, we're going to be keeping. I, for one, like to go to courts. I love going to courts. I go all over the state, and I love being in a court because it's such a social experience in addition to the work you do as a lawyer.
Right.
So I miss that part of it. But I have to tell you, I had a couple of weeks ago, I had 4 court hearings, one in the Cape, one in Lowell, one in Boston, and one in Marlborough. And then before the pandemic, I would drive to every one of those courts, calling each one, telling them I'm going to be late. I did all of them from my office in about an hour and a half, which when you think about it is saving a lot of time doing that, although I miss going to the courts. But also I think it saves a lot of defendants from missing work by being able to have their lawyer on it and not sometimes having the defendants have to be on the Zoom or whatever it is.
You know, as I said, Counselor, this pandemic is obviously a terrible event, and you only hope that certain things that happen that you have to deal with have an unintended consequence of a positive nature. And I do think the fact that we have somewhat been dragged into the 21st century, that's not going to change. And I don't think lawyers, even though I agree with you, there's a great comfort in going into the courtroom, but I think lawyers are going to demand it. I think parties are going to demand it.
Sure.
And the technology is here to stay.
Well, I always used to think it kind of funny that I was told that on good days, about 20,000 people went into our court systems throughout Massachusetts every day. And about 90% of them went there at 9 o'clock. And within probably an hour, a half or 60 or 65% of them went home with a new date. And it just struck me as like, you know, people miss work, they go in for nothing, they get a new date, they go. And, you know, why we didn't ever have staggered times that the federal court uses. You go at 9,
Right.
some people come at 11, some people come at 2. We always seem to have that 9 o'clock call. And over the year when I first started 42 years ago, if your client wasn't there, a lot of judges would default them right away. Of course, that would go on their records, and you know what that can mean later on in life.
Sure.
But so, and I agree with you, but it was because we always did it that way for 100 years, or more than 100 years. So it takes some events like this, I think, to change a government structure, because it's hard to change government. It just seems to go along in the same vein. Are you doing trials now out there?
We are going to start, well, I think we've had a couple of bench trials, civil bench trials, which have been done remotely as well, interestingly enough. Our first criminal trials, we're going to have a couple of criminal trials on November 17th, and we're hopeful that that's
Jury?
going to, that's jury. We're bringing in jurors for the first time, and we're going to we're going to see how that works. They have to rearrange where the jurors are brought in, where they stay, how they're in panels, where they're in panels, where they deliberate. And so as much as we're hoping to accomplish justice by having these trials, we're also hoping to see exactly how this works, how we can make it work better, and where there may be some potential problems.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of jurors will say that they can't serve for COVID reasons, and they're afraid, or they have underlying conditions. Because even before this, there was always a group of jurors that would have excuses for not serving, some of it frivolous. But now I think you might have a problem getting jurors in. Do you sense that at all?
Well, I do, and as you're probably aware, we have the environmental issues in the Hall of Justice in Springfield.
Oh, yeah.
Which add to some of those concerns. So I'm waiting to see what the response is going to be when those jury notices go out and as they start to filter back to the Office of Jury Commissioner.
Now, when you have those trials, the witnesses, I assume, will have to be in person.
I would think so. I mean, we haven't reached that point yet. We haven't picked the trials. What we're trying to do, Counselor, is to get a couple of trials that we know are basically fairly straightforward. There are no outstanding issues. Basically, one or two witness trials, so that when we bring the jurors in, we impanel them right away. We can finish the case that day, and when it's time to go home, the jurors are done with their service completely. And so my sense is, I would certainly expect the witnesses, a complainant or a police officer, to come into court, and obviously the defendant. We haven't gotten to the point whether we're going to start waiving some of these things yet, but again, everything is new today.
Yeah. But I mean, if I'm representing a defendant in a criminal matter, I don't think I could go forward with a witness on a video.
I would feel the same way.
I mean, you don't have the same interaction. You don't get to see the witness testify and how they testify.
The jurors can't make that determination either.
Right, or a judge on a judge trial.
Right,
couldn't
exactly,
make
yeah.
it. And you never know where the witness is. Are they home reading a police report, or are they somewhere in somebody else's office helping them with the answer?
Yeah.
So,
I can't imagine that ever happening, but then again, I couldn't imagine some of the stuff we're doing now ever happening either.
well, I wish you well. When you're not going to retire soon, are you?
Oh, in the next 6 or 7 months.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being out there. You've always had a great reputation out there.
Thank you very much, Counsel.
Thank you for
Mary?
your testimony.
Counselor Kennedy?
Thank you. Hi, Judge, how are you? Congratulations
Good,
on
sir.
your upcoming retirement, if you're looking forward to it, that is. I just want to touch on something Counsel Jewell said about jury trials, and I've raised this with Chief Justice Dawley. I don't know you, Judge. I don't go out to Springfield very often. I've been out there maybe 3 times in my career. But I am in court every day usually. I actually tried a bench trial yesterday in Somerville. a criminal bench trial. I've done countless jury of 6 cases in the district court and a lot in the Superior Court. And I got to tell you what my big beef is with what the trial court's doing right now in terms of restarting jury trials is I don't want jurors deliberating that have to socially distance, that are sitting in the room wanting to get out of there because they're afraid of COVID. You can put all the protections in the world in place. You can put up plexiglass between them. You can have them wearing masks, which I don't like, because they're just not going to interact the way they would in normal times. Do you think we're jumping the gun? You think, I mean, is it that necessary that a first offense OUI go to, we have a vaccine? Judge, I can't hear you. There you go. Now I can.
After you said first offense OUI, you cut out, so I didn't hear that. You cut out again.
This is what trials would be like, right?
Yeah, well, he's proving the point.
That's part of it.
Yeah, we lost him.
I keep going in and out, but I think you get my point that jury deliberations are going to be a problem where people are afraid of getting COVID. They're not going to interact the way we would want them to.
Well, if I could explain, Counselor, what we're going to do in Springfield is we have abutting courtrooms that we use for jury sessions. And the trial would take place in one of the one of the courtrooms, and the deliberations will take place in the other courtroom, so that there will be space, plenty of space.
But I don't want that space. I don't want them in there not interacting. I want them to be a jury that's going to sit there and deliberate the way they used to when they're deciding whether my client's guilty or not guilty. And I think that's a problem. And I don't want jurors in there that just want to get out of there because they're afraid of getting COVID when they're deliberating. I don't think it's going to work.
Well, I'm not guaranteeing anything's going to work. I just that this is what we're going to try to do. And as I said to Councilor Jubenville, we're trying to pick cases that are fairly straightforward.
Let me ask you this: if you're on trial, do you want the jurors going into a deliberation room right now during COVID, having to socially distance themselves, having to wear masks, probably some of them, and not interacting the way a normal jury would?
The only thing I can tell you, Counselor, is anecdotally, my son is a lawyer out in Denver, and he was on a jury just as the COVID situation broke out in March, and the case got continued until June. And they brought them back, and the lawyers agreed to go forward. And he told me that they did their deliberations in a courtroom, and he thought it went okay.
No, I get that, but you're still separated out. You're not sitting around a table discussing it the way you normally would. You're wearing masks. You're socially distancing, and I don't think that's the way a jury trial should be. And if we have to wait 6 months to do them, so what?
Well, I'll pass along your thoughts to my chief, but that's at a higher pay grade than mine.
Now, Judge Delvecchio just walked into my mediation. She's giving me a dirty lick, so I have to go to the other end of the room and put my mask on. It was nice talking to you, Judge.
Thank you, Counselor.
All right, I understand that we're supposed to have the assembly at 11:30. Is that correct, Lauren? Someone?
No, 12 o'clock.
It's going to be 12 o'clock. Okay. Our next witness is going to be Carmen.
Excuse me,
Sorry,
Mary.
Counselor Anella.
Yeah, one thing, Judge, congratulations on your upcoming retirement. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm just curious. I mean, and I don't want to give you a hard time, but you really didn't answer Counselor Kennedy's question. I'm a lawyer, and what's your sense? I mean, here's Kennedy's thing. He likes them all in the same room. He likes them to be able to interact. And you said, you'll talk to the chief. But I'm just curious, your own personal opinion. You can say, I think Kennedy's wrong. You know what? I think he's right. He makes a great point. And I don't know your opinion. I know you're not the nominee, but I'm curious if you have an opinion.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with what Kennedy, Counselor Kennedy says. But what I am indicating is that we have a backlog of cases that are now working on 7 and 8 months, and that's cases that started 7 or 8 months ago. Never mind the cases that were scheduled for trial back in March that we haven't got to. And at some point, we're going to have to decide how we're going to do it. And I think we're going to have to try some innovative ways and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we have other issues to deal with. But we have a backlog of cases so great in the Springfield District Court right now that I'm not sure, even if we had extra judges, Danielle Williams being one of those judges, hopefully, that we could catch up within 2 or 3 years if we had 2 or 3 jury trials a day. So I just think I understand your concern, and if I was practicing, I would have the same concerns. But from our standpoint, we have to do something to get the justice system moving, and we have to try some things that we haven't done before and see if they work.
Well, thank you. I do agree with Kennedy, Counselor Kennedy, in the sense, like, is it that important? First offense, WUI, if they're really that important, if we wait another 6 months, another 8 months, I don't know. I personally don't think it's that important. I think it's more important to get it right as opposed to handling the backlog. I understand what you're saying about the backlog. That's important. But to me, it's more, we got to get it right. And I do agree with Counselor Kennedy. I'm not sure this is the best way, but I wish you well. And maybe someday you'll be practicing again. I'm not sure what your thoughts are going forward, but it's good to see you, Judge.
Thank you very much, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge Payne. And I would also indicate that 4 years ago, he started championing Danielle Williams as a superstar. And after getting to know her, you're absolutely right, Judge Payne. It's great to see you.
Thank you very much.
And don't come back in practice. Just enjoy it. Your well-deserved retirement.
As you know better than anyone, Counselor, that all depends on what my wife says. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from another superstar, Carmen Lozado Carroll, who is a sessions clerk in the Springfield District Court, better known as Peachy to everybody, and she does a fantastic job. I only wish she went to law school. So
yeah,
she could
me
be
too.
But as long as your boss is Clerk Gay there, John Gay?
Yeah.
Yes, he's here.
Okay, well, my commercial message is that she should become a clerk.
Thank you. Okay, ready? Good morning. My name, as Judge Hurley indicated, is Carmen Lozada Carroll, and I am currently the office manager for the Springfield District Court Clerk's Office. I was a session clerk for 27 years and have been with the trial court for 39 years. I'm a little nervous, but excited and honored to speak on behalf of Assistant Clerk Magistrate Danielle Williams' nomination. Congratulations, Danielle. You will be a great judge as you are a clerk. I couldn't be happier for you. Governor Baker did an excellent job in nominating you. You have always been a smart, compassionate, and have a calming presence. I am so impressed with all your endeavors. It speaks volumes of your integrity. Congratulations, well deserved. If you worked in the courthouse on a regular basis, you already know how great a pick this is. These are a few of the 100 comments received from people in the Pioneer Valley in support of Assistant Clerk Williams' nomination. And today I join the voices of the Valley in corroborating this deserving and commendable nomination. I have worked with Assistant Clerk Williams for a total of 8 years. I've observed her from afar and close up. She is consistent and a woman of integrity. She is smart, a student of the law. Although compassionate and kind, Assistant Clerk Williams exhibits quite a quiet strength and is no pushover. She is an active listener and a critical thinker and is gifted with common sense, and she is a woman of her word. Despite her busy schedule, Assistant Clerk Williams finds time to volunteer in the community. Her family and her faith are her cornerstones of Assistant Clerk Williams' life, and she has an extraordinary strong family unit. Myself and our Springfield District Court family wholeheartedly support Assistant Clerk Williams' nomination for judgeship. As you know, I had to write everything down so that I wouldn't mess up, but I am very proud to be called her friend and her colleague, and she's going to do a great job.
Thank you. Any questions of this witness? Hearing none, Peachy did a great job. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
would now call on on Clerk John Gay from the Springfield District Court. I hope you heard
Good
what I
morning, Chairman Hurley, fellow councilors. Good morning. My name is John Gay. I'm the Clerk Magistrate of the Springfield District Court, and I've been asked and honored to testify on behalf of Danielle Williams. I've known Danielle for about 5 years when she applied and successfully achieved the assistant clerk status that she currently enjoys now. She has been nothing short of a joy and a true ambassador to our office, to the city, and to the trial court in general. My mother always told me to follow the 3 Bs, which is to be brief, be bright, and to be gone. And I will work on the middle one. That's a hard one for me. The 2 that preceded and followed it, I'd be glad to follow. I want to just take a moment to talk about Danielle's pedigree. Unlike Judge Payne, I didn't have to suffer, as he might have said, as a young attorney, as she was a young district attorney. I got Danielle in her fully ripened status. She is excellent. She is competent. She is exactly what an assistant clerk should be. And what's more importantly, she's exactly, she embodies the temperament and the qualities of an effective district court judge. She, as Judge Payne already alluded, she runs the busiest arraignment session in this Commonwealth. But in addition to that, she's not a one-trick pony. She's effectively dealt with small claims trials, show cause hearings, and a vast array of administrative issues that come before this court every day. The final thing I'd like to mention before I happily take questions about Danielle's candidacy is the fact that in the Superior Court, there's sometimes a ponderous legacy of doing the begets when a candidate becomes a Superior Court judge. But in this case, I want to point out the person that Danielle would be following, because it's a remarkable how much similarity they have. Judge Patricia Martinelli Polar is a spot that she would fill. And if I were to summarize Judge Polar's attributes, I would say that she was flexible, she was versatile, she was calm under pressure, she was poised and confident, and she was empathetic. And I mention those adjectives only because they're gleaned directly from Danielle's resume. The 2 are symbiotic and symbolic sisters. And I commend Governor Baker and this council for considering her most excellent nomination. She has a once in a lifetime, once in a generation mind. And the trial court will be done proud with her ascendancy to the bench. I'm happy to answer questions.
I have a question.
Back in good health.
Hello?
Any questions? Counselor Jubenville?
Yes. Thank you. It's good to see you again. I saw you, I don't know, it's got to be 6, 7 years ago now at a Hampden County Bar
That's right.
luncheon. I was still a member of the Hampden County Bar at that time. But I hear nothing but good things about you. In fact, I was talking to Attorney Franco this morning, and I mentioned you were coming here, and he went on and on about you. So
Thank you.
you got a great reputation there. tell me how, your feelings on somebody who's an assistant clerk moving into a judge's position. How does that align itself?
I think it depends. And I think in Danielle's case, it's a tribute to her mother, her upbringing, and her liberal arts background, but that she's been able to master all aspects of what is within the district court's jurisdiction. She, as Judge Payne noted, she was an ADA. In addition, she was also an assistant attorney general, but she wasn't just a prosecutor. She's done extensive civil litigation, which qualifies her as just a total package. So in Danielle's case, I would say I have absolutely no reservations. We've been trying in Springfield to get more generalists in, much like Danielle. It's hard to find someone exactly like her, but that's been my vision. I'm a liberal arts guy, and I think people should know about history and civil and criminal and everything that goes into a liberal arts education. And Danielle is the perfect embodiment of that. So if you can find me another assistant clerk like Danielle, I would hire him or her in a second.
We see sometimes, or I see sometimes, people that I have voted on, and then years down the road, a few years down the road, I go into a courthouse and some lawyer says to me, or some assistant clerk or some DA, "Did you vote for that person?" And I say, "Yeah, why?" And they go on to tell me all these negative things about the person. Do you think there's any issue here with when people receive a robe and they have that power, perceived power, if you want to call it, changing?
I started my career in Dorchester, and the office manager back then was a woman named Dottie Kelly, and her father was
I know
John
Dottie
Kelly.
Kelly, yeah.
And John Kelly had a famous expression where a judge can hurt you, but a clerk can kill you.
No, no doubt about it.
Danielle will never kill anybody. I mean, she is open-minded, she's respectful, and she doesn't take her authority lightly. My biggest lament, in a sense, is that I will never be able to call her Danielle again. She'll always be judged to me from now on. But it's a price worth paying.
Who was the clerk in Dorchester when you were there?
Richard Dwyer,
Oh, yeah. Richard Dwyer, yeah. Did Richard pass away?
he did about
Yeah.
5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, he was down the Cape doing different.
He was,
work
yeah, he
down
was
there.
helping in Barnstable.
Yeah, he was a good guy. How long were you there?
I was there from 1985 to 94 and then I took a regional administrative job with then Chief Justice Zoll. Then I became the clerk 2011 in this building.
And where are you from, the Dorchester area?
I'm actually from Walpole originally. I relocated to Western Mass when I received the job from Chief Justice Zoll as a regional director. So
Where do you live
So
now?
I've been out there since 94
Where do you live now?
in East Hampton.
Your sister lives there. Nice town.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions of this witness?
I do.
It's good to see you again, John. Glad you're in good health.
Judge, I think Counselor Devaney has a question.
Oh, okay, Counselor Devaney.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I have to ask you, what is the strongest attribute you could give to this nominee?
For this nominee? It's hard to choose. I think it's her brilliance. I mean, and by brilliance, I'm not hedging the answer, but her brilliance lies in the fact that there are things that she knows that she doesn't know. And instead of trying to hide them the way some people would do, she dives in. So she brilliantly masters what she can with humility, in the sense that she can expand and treat each day as a learning opportunity. She's just a wonderful human being.
Tell me, what are the years of experience and how you have worked with this nominee?
I'm sorry?
How many years have you worked with this nominee? What experience have you had?
Yeah, I was happy to hire her 5 years ago. So that really began my relationship with her.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you,
I
Counsel.
appreciate it.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chairman.
Great to see you.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. We're going to have our assembly at 12 o'clock. So at this time, I would introduce our nominee, Danielle Williams. I would invite you, first of all, to introduce your family and then to give your opening statement.
Thank you very much. Morning. I have brought with me my family today, my brother Robert, and my nephew Kason, my niece Gabrielle, and my mother Yvonne. So thank you very much. I love you. Thank you for being here with me. Good morning. First, I thank Lieutenant Governor Polito and Governor Baker for the honor of this nomination. I thank the members of the Governor's Council for considering confirmation of my nomination to the District Court. I especially thank Councilor Mary Hurley for hosting this hearing today. I also thank Bob Ross, Lauren Green-Petrino and their staff, the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission, and the Joint Bar for placing my name before the Governor for nomination. I thank each one of my witnesses, Judge John Payne, Clerk John Gay, and Mrs. Carmen Lozada Carroll, better known in the court as Peachy. I am humbled by your support, and I am grateful that each one of you has been an important part of my journey. I am the proud daughter of William and Yvonne Williams. Yes, my late father's name is William Williams. He often joked, "I'm so nice, my mama named me twice." Born in Eufaula, Alabama in 1943, my dad, a biracial child of the South, didn't have an easy time. But what he did have was vision and commitment. As a young boy, he always knew what he wanted to be, an engineer. One of his teachers shot down his dream, stating that little brown boys can't be engineers. But my father knew what he wanted to be, and he refused to allow the circumstances of his upbringing or race make him doubt his worth or the possibility of his success. He began his career as a Navy mechanic, working on planes he would have flown if not for his less than optimal eyesight. Later, he worked on the auto line making cars in Buffalo, never losing sight of his goal. He attended college, the first in his family to do so, and became what he intended. He was hired as a young engineer with Procter & Gamble. My father worked successfully as an engineer for over 25 years, becoming a world-renowned resource in his profession. He passed away in 2008, and I could not be prouder or more appreciative of the example that he has set for me. My mother came to this country from Trinidad as a young girl to study. Raised by her paternal grandparent, she had an example of grandparents who had high standards and boundless love. Mama, and Daddy as she called them, doted on my mother and my Aunt Leah, but they expected excellence. Study and clear goals were important. Daddy taught my mother to treat everyone with decency and compassion, lest she entertain angels unaware. My mother's faith in people was almost equal to her faith in God. She has always believed that if you speak with someone long enough, you will find common ground and understanding. She had a successful career in corporate America before she was diagnosed with cancer when I was 11. 3 primary cancers in 4 areas is not something that is tracked, let alone survived. Yet more than 31 years after her diagnosis and major surgery, she is cancer-free. She owes this to her faith and her willingness to change a workaholic lifestyle that was killing her. In her example, I remember to seek balance in my life. My first brush with a legal career came when I graduated from college. I returned home from the College of William and Mary, and unlike my father, had absolutely no idea what I wanted to be. A family friend suggested I apply for an internship in the Hampden County District Attorney's Office. It was her assessment that I was sheltered, and working down at the Hall of Justice would open my eyes to some of the struggles that other people were facing on a daily basis. She was right. I was sheltered. District Attorney Bill Bennett hired me as a victim witness advocate in 1998. Assigned to the busy Springfield District Court, it was my task to help usher people through a legal system that most want to avoid. From arraignment to pretrial to disposition and trial, I listened to questions and fears and began to understand the importance of the community court in which I worked. I spent a great deal of time admiring the judges and clerks and attorneys and court staff, how they worked together to ensure that people had access to justice. It was a system I wanted to be a part of. I decided to go to law school. After law school, I returned to the Hampden County DA's office as an assistant district attorney in 2003. The district attorney's office was a fast-paced training ground for a young lawyer. I learned there was a big difference between ushering people through a legal system and working as a prosecutor within that system. There, I learned the importance of preparedness. DA Bennett insisted that all ADAs be able to try a case competently at a moment's notice. He reminded us that our client was the general public and ensured we handled every case with the weight of that responsibility. After 3.5 years at the office, I left for private practice. As much as I loved the work of the district attorney's office, it was important for me to gain civil experience. As an associate at Fierce, Kane, and Bloomberg, my law practice concentrated on criminal defense, landlord-tenant law, real estate, law, as well as estate planning. I know these varied focuses helped me develop the ability to pivot my thinking quickly and competently in order to assess potential legal issues from different perspectives. During this period, I also realized how much I enjoyed and missed public service, and how much I missed being part of giving ordinary people in my community a voice and access to justice. Returning to the Springfield District Court as an assistant clerk magistrate felt a lot like coming home, but presented new challenges. I can tell you that working in the Springfield District Court will reveal a person's true nature. There is nowhere to hide when the docket is overfull, the technology fails, and all hell breaks loose. However, I am proud of my ability to adapt to the demand, put the work first with decency and respect, and work with all of the components of the court for the common goal of providing people access to justice. Clerk Gay has afforded me the opportunity to really shine, ensuring that I work in all sessions from arraignment to pretrial to trial to small claims to show cause hearings has allowed me to expand my experience. His approach allows me to build on the skills in my toolbox to meet any challenge. He encourages his clerks to always remember that the goal of our community court is to serve the public. The judges of the Springfield District Court have been a great example for me. Their compassion, knowledge of the law, and ethical approach to administration of justice are things that I have endeavored to adopt and live in my own life. If given the opportunity to become an associate justice of the district court, I would keep the foregoing as my capstone. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself. I invite you to ask me any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. I also neglected, is there anyone here to speak in opposition? In these days of COVID, it's pretty obvious there isn't. So at this point, we'll entertain questions from the counselors, and I'm just letting you know that at noon or thereabouts, we're going to have an assembly with the Lieutenant Governor. And I will, at that point, break and announce probably a 15-minute recess. Okay, so.
I can be done before noon. I can be done before noon, Council.
All right, Councilor Ferrara.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I believe I met you. Did you fill in Westfield District Court at times?
Occasionally.
Yeah, I think I did. And actually, I remember that you were extremely, extremely kind. I had a client who was trying to make a couple of bucks doing some salvage, bringing them some parts to New York, stopped by the Mass State Police. I was a cop for 30 years, chief of police, but they really hammered this guy back. I mean, he's a sole proprietor trying to make a living. They nailed him with over $5,000 worth of fines and made him empty his truck that day and get it towed. And it was just awful. But you were extremely compassionate, fair. I think you were so fair that the trooper wasn't that happy at the end of the day. but I appreciated your courtesy, and you certainly did the right thing. Your counselor, Mary Hurley, is a huge fan of yours. Spoke highly about you when you got nominated. You know, I also do a civil practice, and I think it's important that it's definitely an added bonus that you have done civil practice as well as criminal practice. Your resume is phenomenal. I appreciate your service as a as well as an assistant clerk. And I know I have to vote for you next week, or Mary Hurley will never talk to me again. So you have my vote next week. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Some people would think that was a reward. Councilor Anello, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, just a statement. I know Councilor Hurley is supporting you. Thank you for calling on me. I think you're an outstanding candidate. I enjoyed listening to your witnesses, and next week I'd be more than happy to support you.
Thank you, Councilor Anello. Councilor Kennedy.
I only have a couple of things I want to say because we spoke on the phone. I am at a mediation, as I indicated, it was scheduled a very long time ago. We had a very long conversation on the phone. I think you're incredibly qualified. I think you've got a great demeanor. And I'll reiterate what everyone else has said. Your home council is a huge fan. And like Councilor Ferrara, I'm afraid of her too, so I'm going to vote for you.
You should be now, Terry. Thank you very much, Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Duff.
I best unmute myself. How are you?
I'm well.
You do, just to reiterate, you have a phenomenal resume and a fabulous reputation. I think Councilor Fiera may have said it. The combination of academics' world experience in compassion and the ability to listen isn't something we always see. I think you're so well suited for the district court. Thank you for applying. I have one question. It's more of a curiosity. When you were the president of the multimedia company Gata, is that how you
Yes.
say it?
Yes. Well, it's hyphenated, but yes, Gata, yes.
Okay. How did you, and this has nothing to do with your judgeship, but I think it's a fascinating thing. How did you get involved or interested in Egyptian mythology?
So it was actually something that I'd always been interested in. I think it started with my parents taking me to museums as a child. You know, we were fortunate to travel to Europe, and I remember going to the British Museum and going to the Egyptian exhibit and spending all of my time there and just wondering about the history and the stories of these mummies I was seeing in these statues. And so started looking into it. And so I think my fascination started there, honestly. And so I was really fortunate to be able to write some of that in my former life.
That's fantastic. To be frank, I was the same way. I mean, Tales of the Arabian Nights was probably probably still is one of my favorite books. And they had done some movies of it, aren't all exactly accurate to the book, but fascinating. And I had the great, I guess, pleasure and opportunity to travel to Egypt probably 40 years ago, when it was quite different than it is today. As a single woman backpacking, and let me tell you, it was a fabulous, fabulous experience. And I met friends there that I stayed in touch with for many years, and even my parents went to visit them over in Cairo. So I'm fascinated by that. Anyway, I not to beat the drum, but I really don't have any questions for you. Your resume truly speaks for itself and your reputation. Council Hurley is a big fan. That gets you to the 40-yard line with me, not all the way, but everything else does get you all the way. So thank you so much, frankly, for your application. It's really, it's so wonderful to see this, such a diverse background and a plethora of experience. And frankly, like I said, your reputation as somebody who really truly listens and makes decisions based on that is really great. And I'm a fan of William and Mary as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions of this nominee?
I do, Counselor Hurley.
Counselor Jubenville.
Before they make a statue out of you and put it on the front of the State House lawn, I'm going to ask you some questions, okay?
Of course.
I want to preface it by saying I have received a lot of input from lawyers in the Springfield area. We received some good statements from the judge and the clerk, who were very well respected. And Judge Santinello sent a letter on your behalf. And I think the world of him also. So I take a lot of that as important. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind your compassion, which is a very big part of, I think, making a good judge. Common sense and compassion, I think, are the two things that make a great judge. But there are things I want to ask you. Your background, you had indicated that you worked for, let's see, you first worked for, I want to go backwards here. So you started with the Hampden County District Attorney's Office as a victim witness advocate.
Yes.
And that was when?
That was I started the fall of 1998. So I interned first, and then DA Bennett hired me.
Okay. So you went from the advocate's office to an assistant DA's position?
I was actually briefly, I was a part-time associate with two firms. So in the morning I worked for Patty Glenn, and in the afternoon, I worked for Richard Goldman. So I did, for her, I did divorce and personal injury, and in the afternoon, I did real estate and estate planning.
So the Goldman and Glenn was from January 03 to October 03?
Yes, sir.
And why did you leave there?
I really thought it was really important I didn't want to be one of those attorneys who were afraid to get up on their feet and be in a courtroom. So I really appreciated that experience, but I really wanted to get trial experience, which I knew I would get at the district attorney's office.
So you left there to go into the DA's office?
Yes.
You were in the DA's office from 2003 to 2007?
Yes.
And why did you decide to leave there?
I believe there's a point where you know if you're a lifetime prosecutor and or whether it's time to try something new. And I thought it was time to expand my experience as an attorney and get some experience in civil practice. So that's when I decided to leave the district attorney's office.
And where did you go then?
I went to New York and I worked for a firm, the Scott firm. It was a challenging time because it was also the same at that time that my father was diagnosed with cancer. So I spent a great deal coming back to Massachusetts. So I have to say that I was definitely 1 foot in New York and 1 foot in Massachusetts because of that.
You didn't put you were a member of the New York bar.
No, I was not.
So you didn't go to court?
No.
You didn't try any cases there?
I did not.
Okay, then where did you go after you left there?
I came back to Massachusetts and I did some work on my own and worked for still was affiliated with the multimedia company writing. Found that was really important as a way of my grieving process. And then was fortunate to become an associate at the firm of Fierce Kane and Bloomberg.
The multimedia company was from when to when?
Goodness, it was, I believe it was 2000. I was there I was on and off between 2008 to 2013, I think.
And that was not practicing law?
No, sir. I was doing stuff on my own at the same time, though, practicing.
What stuff?
I did some business organization work, some trademark work at that time in Massachusetts.
Did you have any trials at that time?
I did not.
And then you worked for a company, a firm in Northampton?
Yes.
And you were there for a little over 2 years, 2.5 years?
Yes, sir.
How come you left there?
At that point, a few reasons. Number one, I think if you are a person who can knock down doors and get clients, and I think it takes a special personality and a person who's able to do that. And that's not something I'm gifted in doing. And I also realized how much I missed and loved public service. So I was looking for a way to get back into public service. And that's when I applied both to the Attorney General's office and for the position of Assistant Clerk Magistrate.
You want to stop?
Counselor Gibbonville, if you can just pause. I think
Yep.
the Lieutenant Governor is joining us for the assembly now.
Yes, so as I indicated, we're going to suspend the hearing so that we can meet with the Lieutenant Governor for the assembly. I'm going to indicate that we'll try and go back, it's 12:04, we'll try and go back in session at 12:20. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor.
Good morning, Councilor Hurley, and members of the Governor's Council.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
Okay, we may begin the assembly this week. I would call upon Councilor Iannella for our prayer and pledge today.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Thank you. We come to you this hour, asking for your blessing and help as we are gathered together. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. We ask that we would challenge each other to reach higher and farther. to the best we can be. We ask this in the name of the Lord. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
Public
which stands,
stands.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call upon Counselor Kennedy for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant.
So moved, Governor.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
I recognize Counselor Duff for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries public and justices of the peace.
So moved, Governor.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I recognize Counselor Ianella for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Robert W. Parnes to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court.
Thank you. I make a motion that we approve Robert Hartnett to the district court, judge of the district court.
There's a motion. Is there a
Lieutenant
second?
Governor,
There's a second?
Second.
Yes, Counselor.
thank you. First of all, I say this with regret because he's a nice man, but I made a pledge when I first got on the council that I would not have anyone buy their way in. And unfortunately, I don't know how much, hundreds and thousands of contributions that, this man has given. And he didn't have to, he was qualified. But, I made a pledge, and I also have an addition into the governor's statement to all nominees. And that prohibits anyone who is applying for a judgeship to give money to the governor, lieutenant governor. And it reads also governor's counselors. And I did that because people know in the past there were counselors that went to prison selling judgeships. And I feel very strongly that we should not be, shouldn't be based on pages of contributions. And so one of the things that greatly concerned me was that the nominee, besides giving all this money to lieutenant governor and governor, that after the, after the deadline of giving contributions, his wife gave a number of contributions, but one in particular that concerns me is the, well, actually it's $1,500, $1,500 to the lieutenant governor. And I don't want this to be, out there that we're not concerned about these things and that we want people to come before us with the merits of their work. And this man didn't have to do it. He had the qualifications. So, that's a lot of money. These are $1,500 a pop. So I can't in all justice do this. That's why I went to Governor Romney and he put that into the application that the witness, the nominee here has seen today. And I think it's very important to take the money out of it. And so, unfortunately, I am not going to be able to vote for this person because I live by that we don't buy our way in here. And he even gave to a sitting councilor here a couple of years ago who will be voting. So I just don't want that equation to be in here. Those days are gone. And I don't want this to be, I don't want this to be out there for people to say, gee, if you give a lot of money to everyone, you're going to get, you're going to get a judgeship. So with that, that's my reason for voting no. And I don't do it with joy. But it's wrong and it has to stop. And we have to have this council has to show that we are not going to vote people with pages and pages of contributions. It's wrong. And I did ask you, Lieutenant Governor, if you would if you would return that money to the nominee's wife, because the money that she gave was after he was interviewed, after the JNC approved him, and it was on the governor's desk. This is not the way I want my government to work, okay? And it's wrong. So I will be voting no.
Okay. No contributions were made in violation of the governor's executive order. Anyone else like to be heard? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We may begin the roll call.
Counselor Ferreira,
Yes.
Counselor Jubenville,
Yes.
Counselor Davini,
No.
Counselor Ianella,
Yes, yes,
Counselor Duff,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Hurley. 6-1, Governor.
Thank you. I recognize Counselor Duff for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Susan H. McNeil to the position of Associate Justice of the Lawrence District Court.
Thank you, Governor. With great pleasure, I make that nomination.
Second.
There's a motion and a second? Yes, Counselor Devani.
Thank you. First of all, I don't find pleasure in opposing a nominee, but unfortunately, sometimes it requires it. And this is, remind me, I hope I have the right one that we only have 2 today that we're voting on, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So first of all, I want to say that this was the most horrendous thing that I have ever seen, a case that this nominee had. I cried, I lost sleep over it. Okay? And so I wanted just to remind people what this was about. On November 20th, 2015, a 2-year-old girl was kidnapped from her home in the middle of the night. She was tortured, burnt, cut, assaulted, and left naked on the side of a road to die in the freezing cold. Thank God, 2 good Samaritans found her, and first responders arrived. If she hadn't been found, this would have been a murder case. This precious child would have frozen to death. So, as I said, she was burnt all over her body, even removing her diapers to burn her in private parts. Her hair was all cut off, left with cuts, with blood all over her head. This precious little girl is 7 years old now, and she always relives that nightmare. She will never get over the torture, the cruelty for the rest of her life. She was left to die naked in the cold on a street by Abigail Hannah. She still is afraid to put on her socks. She looks at the scars that cover her body, and it's always a reminder. Abigail Hannah was hired as a babysitter. When she didn't show up the second time, they fired her. Attorney Susan McNeil defended Abigail Hannah, and rightfully so. That's her job. And this is, this is not about the position that she has. It's the position that she took defending this person. First of all, everyone needs to be defended. I mean, even the horror of the horrible thing that happened with the in the I'm sorry, I'm filled. I'm not myself today. I'm not really feeling that great, but I know that this person didn't. This little girl deserved more justice. So what happened was Susan McNeil defended Abigail Hanna, and rightfully so. Everyone should be defended, and she has that right. And Attorney McNeil has that right to do her job. She recommended a sentence of 3 years. This is the nominee before us. 3 years for a monster who nearly killed a 2-year-old child. Abigail Hanna has gone before the parole board twice in 2 years. It was learned that this beautiful 2-year-old was not her only victim. They refused her parole. They said that her condition of schizophrenia did not raise to the level of what she did to this child, that many have the same. So she recommended a sentence of 3 years. And the judge, looking at the sentence, is that was, first of all, there was no reason for this short sentence. She could have given her more. And the judge, going by, the regulations, and in these councils that I serve with, have opposed that law. And the thing is that, when you go into the details of this hearing, it is so, for anyone, I've had 4 children that were 2 years old, and I can't even imagine. And the thing is that I heard that in this case, and I heard the nominee, she came before us, and she was very proud of her actions, and she said that was, really what should have happened. And the judge gave her a sentence that she thought was appropriate. And so then, as I said, this precious little girl will have that nightmare for the rest of her life. And so, so the thing is, as the only counselor who responded to the victim parents, we all got notified, all the counselors, from the parents of this poor child. I was the only one that responded. I talked with the father, heartbreaking. And I didn't make up these things. And one of the counselors asked the nominee if what I said was factual. I do my homework. I'm proud of the time I work. I'm the only full-time up here. And this was so heartbreaking. I couldn't sleep after I talked with the father. Yet when this nominee came before us, she didn't have any feeling she did the right thing. And she went by the standards. But you know what? This woman went before the parole board twice, and twice they rejected her. And the nominee, when I questioned, she said that this woman had schizophrenia. Well, the parole board said there are others that have this symptom and they do not torture or children. And so they had rejected her twice. So there is a rule that for good behavior, you can get time off on your sentence. So because of that, this woman is going to be out. She's going to be out in April. Now, the thing is that this father went to the governor, and he didn't see him, he didn't talk with him twice. Can you imagine the parents, how they feel that now the perpetrator who did all these horrible things to their daughter couldn't even be heard, and she's going to be a judge? And the thing is that it was talked on here that, you know, they went by the book, and it really isn't in fact necessary to give that sentence. But anyway, the thing that I want to say is that the parents were reaching out to the council. I'm glad I reached back. And they couldn't come to the hearing. They don't want publicity for their daughter. She's gone through a lot, and they don't want this all over the papers and everything. I'm not even giving the name here. And that's a sad thing, because they reached out to us, and I responded. I know I don't have much clout. I know I don't. And what they want to do is to tell the governor how wrong the system is. First of all, which was so incredible, that the Department of Corrections had approved a move to a minimum security facility for this person and eligible to be out in community work. Imagine the victims. They had to educate the Department of Corrections about Abigail Hanna having sex offender status. She has sex offender status. And so with that information, they didn't allow her to be moved. So this couple is trying to make the system better. They don't want this to happen to any other child. And they don't want someone representing a person and challenging that, you know, she did the right thing.
She did.
And according to the level that was reported, the medical records, okay, does not necessitate this. The description of what happened and does not necessitate that. And so she's a sexual offender, and the 2-year-old's father contacted, as I said, the governor. He has been so involved making things right. They are even involved in the they have a march for children exploited, and they're doing everything they can, and they want to talk to the governor, and they have been rejected. And I'm asking now for the governor to talk to them. Their life will never be the same. Their child will never be the same. And, you know, and this was a monster who nearly killed a 2-year-old child. And she's getting all the treatment that she deserves. And the council all thought was wonderful, and they praised the nominee for all that she has done for the criminal. And I think every criminal has a right to be rehabilitated. But what about this family? Where's the justice for them? That they couldn't even talk to the governor? And the thing is that they have all the documentation about this woman who has sexually attacked children, and yet this never came to pass. And the nominee, you know, when I brought this up, one of my colleagues said, "Is it true what Councilor Devaney is saying?" And she said, she tried to whitewash it and twist it around.
Is there a point
But I just want to say that I am voting no, and I've never felt stronger for a level 3 sex offender and what this child will go through her life and her family for what she did. So the justice didn't meet the crime, and she will be out in a few months. And this trial will have all those scars for what she did, cigarette burns and everything else. So I'm sorry that I have to be so dramatic about it, but it, as a mother of 4 children and grandchildren, I pray for this girl. I pray for her. And she had no remorse. She was so proud of what she did when she was before us, this nominee. And I'm not proud. I'm not proud of what she did. And
Okay.
I will be voting no.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. I assure you that the Executive Office of Public Safety has met with the family and will continue to work with them and be available to them.
I hope so.
We have a motion and a
Lieutenant Governor,
second.
may I say
Is there
something?
anyone else who would like to be heard? Counselor
I do.
Anella. No, Counselor Jubenville.
Thank you. Well, I heard the argument about this lady that my colleague from Watertown had during the hearing. I hear her comments today. And what I take from them is that everybody has a right to a lawyer as long as a lawyer does something that she agrees with. And I can't stress enough how bad this crime was. It was a terrible crime, and I read what the parents wrote, and it's their hurt is palpable, and I feel for them every day. It's a terrible thing they went through. I have 2 daughters, and I would feel the same way if it happened to one of mine. But we live in a country that has probably the greatest judicial system in the world, and one of the reasons it is so great is because we have the presumption of innocence law that says everybody's presumed innocent, no matter what they're accused of, until they either plead guilty or a jury finds them guilty. The other thing about our country that makes us so great is that everybody in our system that's charged with a crime where they could be incarcerated has a right to an attorney. The very famous case of Gideon versus Wainwright, 1963 case, where Mr. Gideon was tried without a lawyer, even though he begged for one. He was in Florida. And the judge said that he wasn't going to give him a lawyer. He didn't give him one. Mr. Gideon was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in state prison. His case made its way to the Supreme Court, and on March 18th of 63, Justice Black issued a decision. Other justices chimed in. But basically, the long and short of it is they said, from now on in this country, every single person in every state that is charged with a crime where incarceration is possible will be given an attorney. The state will supply an attorney for every citizen so accused. When this decision came out, immediately over 2,000 people were released from prison in Florida alone. Thousands were released throughout the country for the same thing. So any good defense lawyer, any defense lawyer that works and takes cases, they get cases sometimes that are horrible, terrible. You wonder how a human being can treat other human beings that way. And if we go back in time just in this Commonwealth and we add up and bring in the cases of every human being that committed an atrocious crime, it would the files would probably fill this room. So even though she represented her and she did her best, that's what her job was. That's what she was there for. That's the oath she took as an attorney. And the judge who made the sentence after the lawyers and the DAs had their say and requested for the judge, I think the Commonwealth requested 10 years in that case, and this nominee requested 3 to 5. Judge Tom Dreschler, who has had many years as a criminal attorney before he was on the bench, decided the case called for a 5 to 7 state prison. So I guess we can we can blame him too, because he's the one that put the final sentence in effect. I'm not concerned with what the parole office did or Department of Corrections. They do what they do. The fact of the matter is, and the issue here for this nominee is whether or not she's qualified to be a judge. You know, when a judge gets a case like this and it goes to a jury, he will explain to the jury and order the jury and not try this case on emotions. You've got to separate yourself as a juror from these terrible emotions you might have. You got to leave them outside the courtroom. But to me, a lawyer that takes a case like this, and I didn't see, I hear the statement from my sister counselor and from others in the court, so-and-so didn't show remorse. I don't know what that means in our court system. I've been 15 times, maybe 16,000 times in front of judges in my career. And I've heard that complaint. The defendant isn't showing any emotion. He's not showing any remorse. Most of the time, I tell a defendant not to show any emotion, because there's people in the courtroom on both sides, and they can get riled up and involved in it. This is a woman who, for all intents and purposes, probably indicated this crime was a terrible crime. Who would be in favor of this crime? Who would talk good about this crime? Nobody would. Everybody would have a feeling about this case, and not a good one. So because she didn't show remorse here, I think it's a criticism that isn't warranted. You know, we in this business do these cases and we move on to other cases. Years go by. And you move on and you do other cases. You don't lose your feeling for the case you had that was terrible, but you move on. I think it's somewhat disappointing that she would be criticized for doing exactly what she is supposed to do. And it takes courage to stand up in a courtroom next to somebody accused of these crimes. A lot of courage. I've been in courtrooms where there's 50 or 60 people sitting behind me with a client next to me that I don't even like. And everybody in that courtroom hates that individual. And most of them probably hate me for sitting there with him, making an argument. But that's what our system is. That's what John Adams did when he defended the captain of the militia, the British militia, that shot the citizens of Boston, known as the Boston Massacre. He was vilified in the newspapers and by neighbors. But he says, that's my job as a lawyer to do that. He got a not guilty for that captain. And then he was hired by one of the soldiers. There were two soldiers he represented. And both of those were found guilty. And in those days, when you were found guilty, if you weren't a citizen of the United States, you were given the choice of either going to prison or going back to your country. So I take my lead from John Adams. I take it from other great lawyers, Clarence Darrow, who represented scores of people that committed atrocious crimes. It's the crime itself is immaterial to the representation of the person charged with that crime. In this country, if Adolf Hitler was here and charged with a crime, he would have gotten a lawyer, because that's what makes our country better than most. And that's what makes our judicial system, in my opinion, the best in the world. So I'm going to be proud to vote for this nominee, and I give her a lot of credit for having the courage to take difficult cases. Thank you.
Before we vote, I would just like to say that this nominee.
Excuse me, may I be recognized as Councilor
Kennedy?
Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Councilor Jubilo and I don't always agree, but I agree with them 1,000% in this particular instance. Both Councilor Jubilo and I, as most of you know, spend a lot of time in court. Some of them have committed or are accused of horrific crimes. We have an obligation to represent them to the best of our ability. We have a code of professional conduct that requires us to zealously represent our clients. If Attorney McNeil had adopted the position that Councilor Devaney is advocating, she shouldn't be up for a judgeship. She should be up before the Board of Bar Overseers being disciplined, because we're obligated to represent everybody to the best of our ability. And that's what she did. Now, I want to set the record straight on one thing. People keep talking about a 3 to 6 year sentence. That was the original recommendation. After reviewing the guidelines and determining that the appropriate guideline was 5 to 7, Attorney McNeil amended her recommendation and recommended 5 to 7 that was adopted by Judge Dressler. Nobody is saying that this crime wasn't horrific. It was committed by a woman who had a history of mental illness going back to the time she was 12 years old, which was a significant mitigating factor in terms of determining what was an appropriate sentence. Attorney McNeil did exactly what she was supposed to do. She should not be criticized for it. She should be commended for it. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. We may commence the roll call.
I had one more comment
We
about
have
that.
a motion. We have a motion and a second, and we may commence the roll call.
Counselor Jubenville?
Yes.
Counselor Devaney?
No.
Counselor Ianella?
Yes.
Counselor Duff?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Hurley?
I concur with what Counselor Kennedy and Counselor Jubenville said 100%. And Counselor Devaney is absolutely wrong. My vote is yes.
Burr?
I concur with Councilor Hurley. I'm a yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments today, for your discussion. I appreciate that. I know you have a hearing underway. That concludes our business today.
We're going to take, as far as the hearing is concerned, it's now 12:37. We will come back into session at 1 o'clock. Thank you.